Hi, welcome back. Um, I took this photo the other evening from my balcony. We had a very striking sunset, and there you see on the hill the silhouette of the memorial commemorating cooperation between Russia and Mongolia in World War II. I think I posted or put up some clearer pictures of the monument close up in a previous video, but I thought I'd start with that. I found this meme, a Comte de St meme. One of the greatest minds, Voltaire, said about him, he is a man who never dies and who knows everything. Yes, Saint-Germain was credited with being a superior philosopher and provably knowing a great deal about a great many things. And we also have multiple testimonies as to his apparent longevity, enough to corroborate or perhaps substantiate what Voltaire had said about him, and the remarkable stories which seem to indicate that, my God, for like 50, 60, 70 years, he appeared to people to be in his mid-40s, and unchangingly so. And some of the stories are perhaps a bit suspect, but they're worth looking into. And one wonders to what extent, what role alchemy had, if any, in this aspect of this remarkable person who was an ambassador, a musician, a painter, an aristocrat, a philosopher, and an alchemist, and a Rosicrucian, and a Freemason. I said last time I would go into Rosicrucianism just a little bit. You recall, excuse me, I have allergies really bad, so I'm just hoping that it's not going to be annoying to anyone. In the last video, I attempted to get into alchemy just a little bit, and I talked about monatomic gold and perhaps monatomic gold playing a role in the Count's longevity, or in the alchemical method, or in the goals of alchemy, or to what extent it did. And I made some attempt at providing some information. And as I said, as I promised, I would discuss Rosicrucianism briefly in my own very limited way, just to introduce you to it. But it does come out of theosophy. It does come, well, no, that's not correct. It's much older than theosophy, but it comes out of the same kind of wellspring, that kind of very, I would call it a pernicious influence on society. Occultism. And I'm not somebody who's speaking as a Christian or anything like that. I'm not a believer of any kind, and I don't see any point in believing in anything when you can either know something or not know it. Why waste one's energy, and why bore other people with beliefs that one might have? But there is the Rosicrucian Museum that I remember from my childhood, growing up in San Jose, California. There was a Rosicrucian Museum, and there's another view of it. Here's a book cover, My Rosicrucian Adventure, Israel Regardie. That looks like it's from the 70s. you see how they use symbols and they pull people in, and it's fascinating, and it gives you it dazzles the mind. Who was it who said, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but a symbol is worth 1,000 pictures? The hypnotic power of symbolism. Pinterest is absolutely fantastic. Look what I found. Look at this. The Temple of the Rosicross. Rosicrucianism, a symbolical figure designed by Theophilus Schweighardt. Constantine's by the grace of God and nature, unchangeable forever. 1618, Ouroboros Press, 2012. Ouroboros, I think that's the symbol of the snake that's eating itself. You know, it's maybe a figure 8, and it's consuming itself. And like other of these esoteric societies, it has this outreach program attempting to bring in new members, and most of the members are not aware of the deeper history of these organizations, and they are not aware of what the very top echelons of leadership within that organization are up to, or whom they're connected with. But this is quite funny, and they're doing the same thing today. Do you laugh your greatest powers away? Don't laugh at yourself. You actually have cosmic powers inside of you. You have no idea, but we can help you. We can help you tap into these powers and change your life. I advise you today to write and ask for your free copy. It will prove to you what your mind can demonstrate. Don't go through life laughing your mental powers away. There must be some inner intelligence. Yes, so it's very intriguing, and it provided a kind of alternative to traditional religions. And as you see on the bottom here, it says the Rosicrucians, not a religious organization, whatever that means. You know, like, I don't even think there is a precise definition of religion. I don't think the UN has one. I don't think there is one. But they want you to understand that this is something else. So it is a form of mind control that targets those people who would not be already committed to some more traditional form of worship. Let's see here. There's another image. And they have long, tiresome classes where they elucidate and they tell you the meaning of every little detail of a chart like this. Yeah, imagery like this. What would you call it? Kind of Neo-Egyptian. But yes, Saint-Germain was associated with Rosicrucianism. Who were the Rosicrucians, though, originally? Well, like with a lot of these societies, they are not brought to us by ascended masters or heavenly angels or ageless monks or enlightened Buddhas. They come through rather more prosaic means. In this case, you can look back to the old Venetian families and the nobility of Europe. And one can trace Rosicrucianism to the Orsini family of Rome. And this is reality now, this is the truth. The Orsini-Rosenberg family of Austria and the Rosenberg family of Bohemia created and managed Rosicrucianism, or the Order of the Rosy Cross, which was a secret society of alchemists. So today, that is these days, the Orsini family is still quite active. They are caught up in a lot of other things. And according to one source, which I will put in the show notes, the Orsini family are owners of the Cleveland crime family, Orsino Mafia clan of Calabria, factions of the Israeli Mafia and modern Jewish Mafia, and they manage the Orsoni political criminals in Corsica. So they are caught up in alchemy, but also expanding into electronic harassment, the use of psychotronic weapons to harass and to alter one's mental activities. They could actually, by remote means, using psychotronic weapons, they can target people and make them feel out of control using these kinds of weapons. So Orsini derives from the word urso, which means a bear, like a grizzly bear. The Orsini Rosenbergs have a bears on their coat of arms. Alchemy, back to alchemy now, is the manipulation of the human psyche and biology through chemicals and is a form of chemical warfare. So on the surface, it looks like this kind of personal journey to some form of self-fulfillment that you can get utterly lost in. But it has another agenda. Alchemical knowledge probably is gathered up from talented people who get pulled into these organizations. And then this information and this knowledge, this technology is then used to manipulate the masses. These families all use the rose on their coat of arms, Rosicrucian. The Rosicrucian order is also called the Order of the Rosy Cross. They work with the Merck family, the Merck, the big drug pharmaceutical company, which created and partly owned Merck Group pharmaceutical company that creates vaccines, which is, to my mind, my God, it's the most... It is alchemy writ large. It is the outstanding example of alchemy as a force on this planet to manage and to manipulate the human race. So the Merck family are an old German nobility, and they have 3 roses on their coat of arms. Kathrein Werke is a German antenna and electronics company founded in Rosenheim, Germany. Rosenheim uses a rose for its coat of arms. And the billionaire Anton Kathrein Jr. is the CEO and owner of Kathrein Werke and an agent of the Rosenbergs, which use antennas and electronics for their electronic warfare on society. Prince Alois Konstantin Lowenstein Wertheim Rosenberg recently worked as the director of Merck Think and Company, which is a private German bank that took over the Rothschilds' Austrian bank during World War II. Prince Alois Konstantin's father was a Nazi and member of the SA, Roman Knight of Malta, Vatican Knight, Bavarian Knight, Habsburg Knight, and a Prussian Nazi Knight. Matthias Schellenberg is the current CEO of Merck Fink and Company Bank with Oliver Keutgens as a member of the executive board. Stefan Oschmann is the chairman and CEO of Merck Group, blah, blah, blah. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration in the US, and most food and drug companies are infiltrated by Rosicrucians. Let that sink in. Scott Gottlieb is the commissioner of the FDA, and he is a Rosicrucian trained in alchemy. The influential rap producer named Alchemist is an agent of the Orsinis, and he is a Jewish mobster trained in alchemy and involved in chemical warfare on society. The Alchemist works with the rap executive and Jewish mobster Paul Rosenberg. Now, of course, I'm not really happy seeing this word Jewish here. I think probably a more apt term is Zionist, because it's clear that it's clear. It's like saying when we refer to people as Jewish in this context, it's a little like saying that all Christians must therefore support the Pope. So it's a bit absurd. So I think maybe the whole point of the fact that this source uses the word Jewish, I think he's pointing to a Zionist agenda that meshes with the agenda of these families. They work hand in hand. The Orsini family were behind the Ebola propaganda. Here we go. And had developed deadly Ebola vaccines. So they're able to cook up these diseases, and then they cook up the vaccines that cause more mayhem and death and injuries. The creator of the Georgia Guidestones, I don't know if many of you know about the Georgia Guidestones, but it's something to look into, in which the aims of regulation of the population of humanity are clearly stated and etched into those stones. So the creator of the Georgia Guidestones used the name R.C. Christian as an alias. He was really Robert C. Cook, an American geneticist involved in population control and eugenics. Just like Bill Gates, his family was deeply involved in eugenics, which is what Planned Parenthood comes out of. RCC, like Roman Catholic Church, and Rosy Cross. The Rosicrucians made a YouTube video placing a time cube with MM and 16 on it. MM for 2000 and 16 together meant 2016. They intended to unleash a fake outbreak in 2016 to bring down the United States and target society with their deadly vaccines. They planned to go as far as quarantining towns and forcing these deadly vaccines on society because of a fake outbreak. Does that sound familiar? The depictions shown of the Ebola virus under a microscope look like 2 8s. 8 plus 8 is 16. The Japanese movie called Virus used a virus called MM88, designed by an American eugenicist. Using movies, media, and numbers like this are a form of sorcery designed to subliminally, that is under the surface, where you're not even aware that it's happening. It's subliminally, to subliminally manifest their agendas. This once this was all exposed, the Ebola propaganda ended within the week. And I remember that. I remember there was this flash on the media screen of the Times, like, oh, Ebola. And there was a brief moment of terror. But I suppose the scheme behind it was exposed to enough people. I wasn't keeping track of it at that time. But looking back now, I can connect the dots. They are behind Zika as well. All vaccines should be considered dangerous. Vaccines are one of the most destructive tools these tyrants use on humanity and are primarily designed to target the nervous system because of the adjuvants. The adjuvants are what the things they add to the vaccines that cause the neurological damage. The aluminum, the mercury, what else? Polysorbate 60, and things that amplify the neurological, the deleterious neurological effects of these adjuvants. Weaken, to target the nervous system and weaken a person's spiritual armor or electromagnetic shield, which we all have. It's not metaphysical conjecture now. We can measure these things. Many vaccines also use live viruses which cause diseases. Many of these corrupt food and pharmaceutical companies use research as their front to engineer diseases. Makes sense, right? Oh, we're just researching, we're looking into it, but we are in fact creating it. We can look to COVID-19. Dr. Fauci setting up a research into chimeric research. That is, how do you take an existing virus and splice other genetic information to create something that didn't exist before? A chimera is like a creation, a hybrid of two different species of animals, for instance. So we have chimeric research into creating new forms of viruses. And this was a project he was doing, even though the United States had declared a moratorium on such research in 2014. He nevertheless went ahead with it in 2015, I think it was, at the University of North Carolina. And when people became alarmed that there was effectively a bioweapons research lab being conducted, that's when they shut it down and they moved it to Wuhan, the P4 lab there, and then the Obama administration gave them, what, $3.7 million to carry on that research. So when people say, was it China, China had engineered this is the fault of China, or China blaming the United States. No, this is a smokescreen. It comes from these ruling elite circles and from these families, specifically the ones that I just mentioned, who are not bound to any nation. They have no loyalty to nations. They are loyal to themselves and to other families with which they have an alliance. And they are transnational. They are a transnational criminal network that exists above, well above governments, well above banks, well above corporations, and above these secret societies which they propagate as a way of controlling the minds of the people beneath them. And as they say, as he said earlier, as I read earlier, how you can create a cult or a group like Rosicrucianism and then take Rosicrucians who feel in their heart of hearts connected to Rosicrucianism and then install them into various agencies, government agencies and pharmaceutical companies to achieve a larger objective. And then people run around pointing fingers at, China, United States. No, it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. Let me see how much time. Okay, we might not get to the next chapter of the Most Holy Trinosophia, but that's okay. That's okay. I just want to create a more realistic image. I don't want to romanticize anything here. I want to get, granular detail as to who's behind Rosicrucianism, who's behind Freemasonry, what were they all about, what are they about today? The Orsini and Rosenberg families were also responsible for the Black Plague. They hired people to poison well water in order to spread the disease. So we see them kind of in almost a slipshod way, almost like this COVID-19 thing was not thought out terribly well, but they relied upon the gullibility of people in general to buy into whatever the media is telling them and slap on masks and stay 6 feet apart and basically hide away, basically do everything that they shouldn't be doing, conducting themselves in a way that prevents the development of herd immunity, desperately trying to, exaggerate the number of deaths, to falsify death certificates. In fact, I have a couple of friends who passed away in the last month, and their deaths were attributed to COVID-19. But I knew that one of them was very elderly, 97 years old, and another one had a whole host of other severe health problems that he'd been in and out of hospital for the last year and a half, and he was labeled COVID-19. And I can tell you, he was a very dear friend, and I know he would be outraged to know that his death was being used to further an agenda which I knew he personally despised. And to honor him, I feel it incumbent upon me to expose these things and to work actively against them through what I'm doing here in Mongolia and in my spiritual discipline and in my contact with others. So the truth, right? The truth is what they're afraid of. So I've seen this at other places too, that the Black Plague was something that was created. And here it's being attributed to the same family, the Orsini family. The song Ring Around the Roses goes back to the times of the Black Plague. They used rose petals to mask the smell of death. I also found two people with the name of Rosenberg that work in high-level positions at Bayer, the pharmaceutical company. Zev Rosenstein is an Israeli mobster and international ecstasy trafficker that has worked with the Gambinos in the United States. Ecstasy, the drug, MDMA, dangerous synthetic drug developed and patented by Merck in 1913. Now people use it as like a recreational drug. Very heavy psychological drug, up there with LSD. The Orsinis and Rosenbergs are part owners of the Israeli mafias, and they were part owners of the Jewish mafias in the United States. Chris Rosenberg was a Jewish member of the Gambino crime family during the 70s and 80s. The Del Balzos are Italian-American family, blah, blah, blah. A lot of names here. I think that's it for, oh, wait. There's more about the Colonna family of Rome, also another ancient family. I mean, these families, they go back to ancient Rome. They go back at least to the Venetian Republic. These are the black nobility families. Colonna family, this is the family behind Christopher Columbus, and still today, very, very powerful. This family works with the Orsini family involved with pharmaceuticals today. Stefano Colonna developed the Julia Colonna epoxidation, which was used by Bayer and Evonik, which are used by Bayer and Evonik today. What is the Julia Colonna epoxidation? It is a technology, a technique. It is used for binding toxic chemicals with human enzymes. So what does that mean, basically? It means it's to enhance, to amplify, to guarantee the damage that would be caused by some of the ingredients in the adjuvants in these vaccines. To make sure they stick, to make sure they hang around and do the damage they're supposed to do. The Orsini and Rosenberg families oversee chemical companies like Bayer, Evonik, and Merck, and use Rosicrucians to run and infiltrate food and drug companies. So, I think we'll leave it there. Look at that, heavy symbols, huh? There you have like it looks like the Templar Knights Templar cross, and a candelabra with 7 candles and a skull with a dagger through it and a ladder. I don't know what any of this means, but it's very impressive. You can see how it would appeal to people with certain tendencies. But back to Saint Germain. Partly the reason that I brought up the current activities of these top high-level Rosicrucians, these families that were certainly very active at during the period of Saint Germain, and they go way back. They go way back. Some of them before the time of Rome. They come from they could be Canaanite, Babylonian roots. Many of these families come from around the Mediterranean region and then come through Rome, and then later they move to Venice, and then they spread their influence through banking and other means to Amsterdam and to London, right? The British East India Company was certainly very much in the Venetian mold. It was essentially there's a continuum of activity that benefits these people. And so I think it's instructive to imagine, to see in our mind's eye what this would have meant for Saint-Germain to be part of this, to be caught up in this world. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he was operating on behalf of humanity, that he was doing good, but certainly he would have had to have been part of these groups or been perhaps an agent of some of them in order to have the connections to carry out his various missions, which I'm sure we'll get into and figure out in more specificity what it was he was actually about. But then again, bringing it back, he is a man who never dies and who knows everything. Is it true that he never died? What is the secret? Is it monatomic gold? Is it something else? At any rate, we can surmise perhaps, certainly people have credited him with huge amounts of spiritual energy that was infectious to people around him. And that is something that I would love for all of us to have, a very bright spiritual energy that's infectious to those around us. And we have to then, since these bright forces that are in each of us and available to all of us for us to develop and to use, we can see how certain dark forces are very threatened by those latent powers that exist in all of us and might be deploying. I say might be, but I know for a fact that they are, through various means, to retard those forces, to de-develop them, to mask them with chemicals, dangerous, toxic chemicals through the foods we eat, through genetically modified foods, through the adjuvants in vaccines, through what they're spraying in the sky and pretending to fight climate change, which doesn't exist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, through disinformation, through fake education, and through cults like Rosicrucianism. So much to think about. I want to dedicate this video to my dear friend, Dr. Jiri Toman, who is really has been such a force in my life and basically helped me to reach a place where I could consider moving to Mongolia and carrying on with this project and developing international law and hoping to stimulate interest in universal law, higher law, natural law. So this is for Jiri. my dear friend, and it's dedicated also to my wonderful students and to everyone out there who know deep in themselves that we have the answers inside us and that nothing can stop us.